National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, presents a Bravo video event, the Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice.
And on today's show, business succession planning with industry consultant Ken Davis.
And now the host of the Business Insurance Zone, the whiz of the biz, insurance columnist Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm Steve Savant, your host. We're broadcasting live to a nationwide network of financial advisors right here in Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's largest fountain. And with me today is industry consultant Ken Davis, CLU, CHFC, CFP, and CPA. Ken, welcome to the show again.
Hey, Stephen.
Ken, you were former president of the CPA Society here in Phoenix.
The local chapter.
The local chapter. He's also taught, as I have, at the CPA Society. They actually listen to us about things like insurance, so shockingly enough.
2 8-hour courses. They're out of their mind.
2 8-hour courses, and get ready for the best part. They paid us to do it, which I am still in shock. And we just want to encourage you that actually there is an awakening. I don't want to get too revivalist here, but there's an awakening among the CPA Society on the issues of the tax favoredness of some of the things we've been talking about in prior shows, and now bringing this up. I think they kind of see this because, you know, there's CPAs that belong to firms. There's not only the big 8 firms, but then there's the regular firms that you and I know about. And hey, they have 2, 3, 4, 5 partners, right? All this is really important. All this week we're talking about business insurance. Yes, we're doing that too. But we're doing business succession planning. And I just want to encourage all of us to really look at this as a possibility to build out your practice. We should all have a general practice, but this could be something that could be your forte. You may fall in love with this, and I think it's a completely underserved. Now, to set the stage before we get into wait and see trust, because I want Ken to talk about it, I see so many first of all, let's say half of everything I've ever seen in a business doesn't have any of this. No planning, no insurance, no nothing. The second part has insurance, but there's no legal docs. So I say, where's your buy-sell agreement? Oh, that's this. No, that's your application, that's your policy, but where's the document by the attorney? It's not there.
Right.
See, so remember that alone, if you could just do due diligence, your prospecting tool just on that issue alone.
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
A and B own insurance on each other. B dies, A gets $1 million. And B's estate says, hey, I want the $1 million and here's the shares. And he goes, we don't have any agreement. I'm keeping the $1 million.
Right.
And without the agreement, they walk with the money, and there's no legal requirement for them to purchase.
That happens more times than not, and not only that, but Ken said yesterday, I had a cardiac arrest. Ken says, hey, listen, what happens when the doc that the attorney draws up doesn't agree with the disability doc in the language in the contract?
You know, what's interesting is part of the reason I got all the credentials wasn't so much to impress people, it's just to learn information. And after I had the first 2 credentials, and I'm going through the CLU, right? And I'm keeping a piece of paper when I hit little issues like that will make me stand out and make me more competitive from a sales standpoint. One of the key things was that issue. That's what I learned in the course, where it said, well, what if the definition of disability in the policy doesn't match the definition in the contract? Contract says you're disabled after 6 months and pay up, but the policy doesn't pay for 12 months. It's just those, you and I both talked about this for years, those little details when you're going head to head in a competitive situation, and you know there's going to be an attorney and an accountant involved in stuff like this. Businesses always have their business advisors involved. So if you got 1 or 2 or 3 other agents on a big case, you're going to win with the little stuff. And when you say to them, hey, did you match up the definition of disability on the disability policy to what's in the buy-sell agreement? The attorneys, you know, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of attorneys don't know to look for that. They don't have any idea.
They have no clue.
They pulled it off the shelf. Now, you don't want to make them look bad, but you do want to make yourself look good. Okay, and that's one of the types of techniques is if you know those types of issues, and I call it falling through the crack because the attorney knows the legal stuff, the accountant knows the tax stuff, and the agent knows his insurance policy. But what about those issues of definition where there's a disability policy and there's a document? Who's looking out for the client there? And if you do that, you become the quarterback. You're the one that pulls it all together.
This is why you want to be the quarterback, the kind of gatekeeper for your client. And we have, again, documentation on this. What should I ask? We have checklists for all this. So you can say, when you walk in there, you say, I'd like to see the doc. Now, you're not going to tell them what it says because you're not a legal entity, or you're not, I'm sorry, not an entity, but a lawyer. But you can bring this over, and then I can send this on to our advanced teams and our carriers, where we do have people that are going to look at this and say, oh, the language is not coinciding. So we can come back and say, hey, we did this exam for you. We examined your documents. We looked at your policies. We do policy reviews all the time, as Ken knows. That's the kind of thing I want to look at. I want to just be able to do that.
And this is so easy to do.
Easy.
In the buy-sell agreement, in the disability section, you simply say, disability is defined as the definition contained in the disability policy that is enforced at the time of disability. So that even if you change out the policy, it automatically changes because you're referring to another document. You know, because if you referred to the definition in policy A and 5 years later you changed it out with policy B.
How many times has that changed already?
You know, you went from a 12-month disability buyout to an 18-month. It doesn't pay for 18 months. Well, then it automatically changes, and then there's a default. The default is if there is no disability buyout, then so much down and a note taken back for years to purchase it. So you've defined what happens in what circumstances.
I have to tell you, the first time I heard the phrase wait and see trust, I thought it was the greatest sales delay tactic I'd ever heard in my life. I'm thinking, like, nobody wants to wait and see. I'm trying to sell the contract today. Wait and see. What is the power and the flexibility of that concept? Because it has some huge merit.
Well, the thing is that we've talked about entity purchases or stock redemption, where the company buys the policy and then gets the proceeds and then buys it out. And we also talked about there's no step up in basis. Talked about the fact there might be an AMT issue. You know, we talked about all of the negative aspects of it. And then we talked about cross-purchase and how you have to have, you know, I used the example 10 partners would have to have 90 policies, 10 times 9. So sometimes up front you want the flexibility to decide later. And hence the term wait and see.
I know, but it sounds like I'm procrastinating on something we've been talking about all week that we shouldn't be doing.
Well, generally you want, I like the cross-purchase, but things happen. And sometimes the attorney or accountant or advisor would like to retain the flexibility. And so all you're really basically saying is you set up the buy-sell that says the company has the option to purchase it, and if they don't exercise that option, then the partners have the option to purchase it. And then if they choose not to, then it goes back to the entity, and the entity has to purchase it. So you see that there's where the wait and see is. It says option to purchase, not mandatory.
Now, is that the only issue on a wait and see? Are these issues of who would get the shares if the one opt out? Does it include anything else?
No, that's pretty much what the wait and see is designed to do, is to allow them to look at the current circumstances, the current tax law, and the
So
situation.
are you installing the valuation then right then and there on the wait and see? You're just not saying who's going to get it.
Well, yeah, the wait and see is going to determine what the value is. And let's talk a little bit about that, because there is actually authority on this issue. I can't remember whether it's a revenue ruling or revenue procedure or whatever it is, but the fact of the matter is, generally the IRS is going to be tied by whatever the agreement is. But what if you agreed that you're going to purchase each other's shares for $1 million, but then the company, when you die, is worth $10 million? Well, obviously the IRS isn't going to say, that doesn't work. I don't care whether you negotiated that in good faith or not. The fact of the matter is, it's worth more than $1 million. It's worth $5 million. And of course the family that's surviving wants the whole $5 million, not the $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, sure.
So there has to be some reasonableness, and where you get into that is, and that's where they get a little tricky, is some sort of formula. You can make reference to, we need to have, you know, party A chooses an appraiser, party B chooses an appraiser, and then they choose an appraiser. I mean, that's how they do silly things like this. Or they just say, hey, we know this appraising company and they're going to be it. And so they're going to appraise it at time, or it could be a formula. We're going to take taxable income and add back this in and take it out and multiply it by a number. I mean, there are formulas that are reasonable, that will hold water in front of the IRS, and will be fair to the surviving partner and the surviving spouse and estate. So those agreements will have valuation in them, whether it's a regular cross purchase, whether it's an entity purchase, or a wait and see where you have the choice of affecting either one of those at the end, or even both.
Now,
you can have a
but,
partial
the way you
purchase.
describe wait and see at first, is that not only a procedure that you just went through, but is that a priority? These people get a shot at it first. Oh, they don't take the option, it goes to second.
It's
Oh, they
all
don't take the
defined.
option, it
Right.
goes back to the company.
Right. The company has the first option to purchase. Then the partners, if the corporation or company chooses not to purchase it, then they have the right to effect the cross purchase. And then if they choose not to, then it's mandatory at the
So it
company
reverts
level.
back to the company, and they got to do it.
They gotta
at
do
the prescribed valuation number that we all agreed on.
Right. And there's the valuation. If it's been funded with a life policy and or a disability policy, there will be cash to affect the change. If there isn't cash, there may be a fallback position of there's going to be a note, so much down in cash and so much to carry, or maybe they try and go out and borrow from the bank. By the way, we didn't talk about this in an earlier show, but you know, when you do borrowing, it gets very expensive and you may not be able to qualify for the loan. So the other alternatives just really don't work, but in this particular case, the life insurance and disability policies do.
Well, I want to think about valuation, and I surely don't want to be doing that, but we have basic math, easy worksheets to at least get you in the game. Again, and we're not using that as a substitute for true valuation by a professional. But if you need to kind of get in a number, because I would say easily, Ken, 70 to 80% of all the buy sells I've seen in my 30-year career did not have professional valuation because the company was small. It was a family close. They were just kind of given a basic, ballpark figure. Nobody was doing a professional,
Well, and personally, I love it when the needs of the client, the needs of the agent all coincide. In this particular case, it does. All the agents, first of all, should be doing this because it's good for the client. Number two, they make a sale, maybe several sales, a life policy, a disability policy, key man insurance, an executive compensation. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of stuff that can go into this thing. But then you don't just stop there. A year or 2, 3 years down the line, probably every year, she say, "Hey, Joe and Susie, how's the business going? Oh, wow, sales are through the roof based on your formula. We had you at a $2 million company, now it's a $6 million company. We need to put some new insurance in place." Well, why do we need to do that? Because you're now worth more and we need more insurance on each other. Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And so it's good for us to go back and help the client from a tax standpoint to make sure everything's done right, and we get to sell more product.
Well, I love the get more sell product part. I like that.
Don't we all?
I love that. But I know that what we're giving away is a package that really is a turnkey. It's great for education, but I've been using it with clients as well, and I think it really lays out what we've been talking about for the last couple of days. I'm thinking of all the money that's sitting right now in companies. Because of our economic use, trillions of dollars, and I'm thinking, I wonder how many people traded off having the liquidity in that money in that side account, and they had to face retained earnings at the end of the year. There's a back and forth issue.
Yeah, accumulated earnings tax.
And so if you're looking at accumulated earnings tax and you're putting that on top of the assets for the buy-sell, we're talking about things that can impact people's life, their family, and the legacy of their children. Listen, you're listening to the Business Insurance Zone, the talk show that focuses on insurance in your practice. You can write us right here at the show, thebiz at brokersalliance.com, or just call us toll free, 1-800-290-7226, extension 147. Ken and I will be right back after a word from our premier sponsor, Brokers Alliance, the largest distributor of life and annuity products, at least in my mind.
Whether you're a professional planner pursuing a strategic partner or an insurance distributor seeking a national alliance, your business just went into overdrive. Now enter the largest resource of insurance products and services with unparalleled access to a worldwide audience of consumers through the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, who can take your company and launch it into the stratosphere of success. With countermeasures, the most comprehensive carrier intel in the industry, the MASH unit with field triage underwriting and the premium tolerance test, the life insurance financial evaluation, the most rigorous policy review, and Bravo high definition broadcasting with online social media. Your search just ended.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm Steve Savant, your host, insurance columnist, financial color commentator, and on this show, an interviewer extraordinaire. Before moving forward with any of the strategies and tactics you hear on our segments, especially all this week, always check in with your CPA, your tax attorney, and if you're FINRA licensed, your broker-dealer compliance department. You can order any of your quotes or questions on life insurance, DI, LTC, group pension plans, and annuities, and anything about buy-sell arrangements. Just go ahead and call us 1-800-290-7226, extension 147. It's not what I know, it's who I know, and that's why I have Ken Davis, CLU, CHFC, CFP, and CPA on our show. Ken, first of all, I salute your credentials. I salute your long-standing, seasoned vet in our business, but more than that, your knowledge is to die for, and that's why we bring you on this show. And remember, I said this a couple of shows back, I don't want to forget this, a little plug for Ken. A lot of people say, this happened again when we did our charitable show at the end of the year. People said, oh, I'm all over this. You've convinced me, I want to do it, but I'm nervous about the first couple sales. What do I do? Well, just call Ken, 1-800-290-7226. His extension here is 117. We just kind of give him an extension because a lot of people want to ask him questions. We just gave him a direct one so he can do that. He's a consultant, outside consulting. He doesn't work for us, Brokers Alliance. He's not a W-2 guy. But a lot of guys like to talk with him and partner with him, and he does a great job. And if you ever have to face fiduciaries, you know, the CFO of a company, the CPA or accountant, the tax attorneys, Ken's the guy you want to talk to, especially on your first contact with a lot of these carriers. You really want to, or these companies, you want Ken involved because he's going to help you traverse what I think is mind-numbing bureaucracy.
Well,
Ken,
if I may, let me just jump in real quick, because one of the things that I pride myself and would love to do and have succeeded at is not only help make the sale, but also to convince those fiduciaries to become the agent's friend. And I actually had a situation after the presentation of a 79 plan where the CPA says, I can think of 2 or 3 other clients that could benefit from this. And this guy was very skeptical up front. And you know what he did too is he had the 79 plan, he wanted it for himself and the attorney that was involved with his client to the tune of about $1,500 a month each in premium towards 79. So, you know, we've always seen the CPA and attorney as the blocking the door, saying no. We not only want to have them say yes, but we want them to be impressed enough that they'll say, not only is this good for my client, but I have other clients that could benefit, and nobody that I've run into in the insurance industry has been doing this before, and you guys really are solid. So that's what we want to do for the agent as well.
Well, you know, Ken, I'm thinking about, and we have this all in our packet that we want to give you, and you can, again, write us, thebiz@brokersalliance.com. It's all business succession planning, but walk us through some of the questions we want to ask. These are the things that are door openers, can openers to conversation. Talk a little bit about those.
Well, the way to do that, and let's talk about the sales process a little bit today. My experience is when you say, gee, Mr. Client, if you don't get this insurance, this is going to happen to you. Well, you know, barriers go up. Right. None of us like to be lectured to. I surely don't. And I get defensive when somebody tells me you need this. Oh gosh, stay away from those words. You need this, you need that, whatever, because you're pointing the finger at them and they're going, I don't need anything. You're not
pointing a finger at them.
Yeah, you're not. This one here.
I'm just trying to clean it up.
We're not, you can't tell them what you do. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of our seasoned agents out there listening to this already know this stuff, is they need to ask questions.
Right.
And to say, gee, Joe, you've been partners with Susie for so many years, and she's really integral to your firm. Yeah, that's right. And he said, you know, you two have been so successful. What's made your business successful? And he asked this open-ended question. And you're not asking, you know, what happens if you die. You're asking, how did you get where you are? And they start thinking about, well, gosh, we started in the garage and we put $5,000. We borrowed money from our friends and our family, our credit cards.
I love stories like that.
You know, and you hear this. I mean, that was Steve Jobs and Apple, and look where they are today. And lots of companies that never reach those heights get started this way.
Oh, definitely.
And you can see them get emotional. You get them excited, and oh wow, look what I did. I've been at this 20 years. And you pay them a big compliment. What have you done to be so successful? You know, and guess what? They're going to talk about that, and they're going to get excited, and they're going to get emotional. They're going to be happy about all that. And what are you doing? You're listening to what's important to them. They talk about how many families they employ, how they have benefits for them, how proud they are of that. That, you know, Mary died the other day, and because the company had life insurance, the surviving, you know, family has money. They talk about the recognition they get in the newspapers. They talk about all this stuff. This is their blood, sweat, and tears for years. And so you're setting the stage for them to really get in touch with what they had to do to build it. And then after you've done that, say, gosh, Joe, you really love this company. This is really a passion for you. Yes, it is. He said, Joe, as important as all that is and as much as you love Susie as your partner, you just told me how wonderful she is. What happened if Susie were to pass away? And they go, wow. And so they're there. And you ask about what happens to the family, what happens to revenues, and all the things we talked about in the first show. Instead of telling them these things are going to happen, you say, what's going to happen? Do you have a plan in place? You do have a plan in place. Great. Have you had it reviewed? When was the last time reviewed? Well, it's 5 years ago. One of the things I see in these plans is disability insurance. The definition of disability that we talked about in the other show isn't addressed. Do you know whether your plan addresses it? Well, gee, I don't know. Nobody's ever talked to me about that. I said, would you mind if I took a look at that?
Well, Ken, you're hitting a vein of thought here. I went on a case where I was there only as the product guy. I wasn't there to talk about disability. And here's how the producer set it up, which I thought was unbelievably excellent. I never heard anybody frame it. He goes, he says, do you know that it's possible that your dreams, educational dreams for your children and grandchildren may be dependent on your partner's health and his ability to stay alive? And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes, he says, what do you mean? He says, well, you each own 50%. He says, yes. And it's $3 million. Yes. We started in a garage. All the stories you just said, wonderful stories and just great. He says, but now it's all determined on everything staying status quo.
Right.
The business continuing as is, income coming in, valuations going up, right? Now all of a sudden something happens to your partner. Are those dreams that you have for your children and grandchildren, your legacy, your wife, everything you want, people you love, the charity you love, is any of this touched or intertwined with your partner? And he goes, well, of course it is. My business is 90% of our wealth. See, I never heard anybody frame it like that. Have you ever? That was unique.
No, and I think that's where asking personal questions. What are your dreams for your business? Do you have dreams for your children or grandchildren, or is anybody involved? Gee, Jeff is involved in your business, but you got 3 other kids. How do you and your wife feel about rewarding Jeff for the work that he's done, and how do you feel about passing the wealth to the other kids, and have you thought about that and what happens? No, I've always thought Joe was going to get it. Well, does Mary agree with you, your wife, that Jeff should get the whole business, or does she want to take care of the other kids? And so by asking these questions, these very personal family, what are your dreams? What was it like? How do you feel? How did you get successful? These are all very human elements. And these are all really important, and these people are passionate about their businesses. So you need to pull those out, get them thinking about their passions and how important it is. And you say, gosh, when it's all said and done, would you spend a couple $100 a month to make sure that didn't all evaporate tomorrow?
When you think about it, Ken, everything you're talking about is a business decision. You're protecting possible events. In DI, higher percentage of possibility.
Much higher percentage possibility.
Death, maybe early retirement for somebody that's older in the partnership. Why would you not do this? This is to protect your ultimate value of your part of your business. My partner, I'm with somebody here now. That person is integrated into my life. I'm okay. I just did this with a couple agents. They have a huge agency, and 2 of them are like in shape. They're running every morning. They eat perfect. I mean, these guys are in bed early. They're really good. The other guy, he's kind of, tipping the bottle. He doesn't work out. He's kind of, not been watching himself and so forth. And they're looking at this guy going, well, I don't know about this, because they feel comfortable with their part of the deal. But what if you can't hold up your side of the issue? What if suddenly you die, heart attack?
Well,
you're just disabled.
I think the other questions you can ask and have ready is say, do you have anybody in your life, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a brother, a sister that's become disabled? Has anybody had cancer and been on chemo for a year where they're still alive but they can't work? Anybody with back trouble? Anybody get involved with alcohol or drugs? Or somebody gets divorced or their kid dies and they fall apart with emotional issues and they can't function anymore? Do you know anybody like that? Sort of like the LTC sale where you ask about that thing, because if they can actually have real life examples, and if they don't, then think to yourself and be prepared and say, you know, and my story was it's kind of it was tragic at the time, but funny. I woke up one morning and I couldn't control the side of my mouth, and I'm rinsing from the toothpaste out, and it's squirting out the side of my mouth. It's just kind of funny. But I'm walking around, you know, I can't talk anymore. I can't
So
tell.
what do you have, a TIA or something?
No, it was a palsy, a temporary palsy, that 90% of the time it goes away in 2 weeks, but 10% of the time it stays. And I could have been disabled for the rest of my life, and I couldn't. There's no way I could sell like that. I was 28 years old. That was a real wake-up call.
Wow,
28 years old. And so suddenly, you know, young people don't see themselves as vulnerable, but they are. And so if you have stories like that, you can kind of wake them up to those possibilities and share with them so that they get it.
I got to tell you, 20 years ago, Steve's on a tennis court, and I yanked my Achilles tendon off, and they did not have the technology back in the day, and I was 9 months out.
I remember that. You
I
were
mean,
running around
I
in
was
crutches.
down. I mean, down. They did not have the technology they have, and so I never thought, Steve, I'm Mr. Athletic, good shape, and I went down for 9 months. And I got to tell you something, my kids were young at the time that this all occurred. That could have been a disaster. I had DI up and through the ceiling that I could get it, and it totally bailed us. We didn't feel anything, and anytime I write those premiums, I sit there with a smile on my face. I write those premiums out with joy. I experienced it. Ken, you're talking about something you went through. Everybody has somebody, friends or somebody that's went through this.
You know what, Steve? I want to buy a life policy and a disability policy on you, because if you're gone, this show's gone. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Just keep that coming to my boss. Just remember that. You can watch our show on www.brokersalliance.com. As soon as you come to the homepage, just click on the on-demand section and check us out on our social networks, YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I'm Steve Savant. You've been listening to the Business Insurance Zone. That's the buzz on the biz for today. Get in the zone. The Business Insurance Zone.
This has been a Bravo video event of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, one of the largest distributors of insurance products and services to a nationwide network of insurance professionals. Need insurance guidance? Call Brokers Alliance. Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice.